But besides that, why am I doing this presentation, right? Like, what is the point of this girl who runs the women's group doing something on women's health, or not women's health, excuse me, mental health? Currently, I'm a graduate student at Marquette for mental health counseling. I am officially halfway done, and I need to say that because I just did my last final on Friday for it. So I'm really excited for my 2-week break. And then I'll be starting my internship soon, so I'm officially halfway done. But that's not where a lot of my experience comes from, actually. I have over 20 years of coaching experience in various realms. So I started with cheerleading, middle school, high school, competitive, and then even the college level, adored it. And I utilize those coaching skills in my 15 years of health and fitness professional experience. So coaching my own clients as well as other fitness professionals. So I ran large teams as well as nationwide teams as well. Oh, and I'm also a member here. Besides that, my family and I have been a member here for 9 years. So me and my husband Logan, and we have 3 children. If you've heard us, I'm just going to say that you have heard us. I have 2 boys that are very close in age, and then a daughter as well. And we live in Tosa with our 2 dogs, Bitsy the Beagle Basset and Priscilla the Pomeranian. I adore dogs, and you'll get a sense of that here in a second. So the goal of this presentation today, just to give you the beginning of the roadmap, is to empower attendees, which is you, to navigate mental health challenges by integrating faith, debunking myths, assessing resources, and fostering a supportive community. So ultimately fostering greater understanding and acceptance for mental health within the faith context. Our agenda for today is we're going to do a brief introduction, similar to what I do in the women's group, but let me be very clear. You're not going to be giving your life story. It's meant to be a quick run through. While I enjoy coming up here and presenting, I also want to just at least know your name for the most part. We're going to talk about debunking myths, and I want to hear some myths that maybe you have heard in regards to faith and mental health. Navigating mental health challenges. This is where you're actually going to get practical tips and tools for navigating, maybe it's your own mental health challenges or someone that you love. So I'm going to give you both of those options. And then last but not least, might be even the most important, is accessing resources. We talk a lot about how important mental health is, and I hear that all the time when people find out what I'm going to grad school for is, oh my gosh, it's so needed. But then I also hear people go, I have no idea where to go or how to even get mental health help for myself or someone that I love. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on that too. I told you I love dogs. All right, so we're going to do a little introduction just to get you in the mental health space. So we're going to do a little mental health check. I want you to just kind of get in your own head right now and think about which number dog describes your mental health status right now. It's so much more fun when it's dogs or animals, right? So we're just going to pause, and all that I want you to do is say your name and the number that you most relate with. If you want to explain, keep it super brief, like 1 to 2 sentences. So when you're ready, go ahead and raise your hand and just, oh, there we go.
1. Nancy Bowen.
Nancy is number 1. All right. Who else? Yes.
D, number 6.
D is number 6. Oh, it's a cute one.
And number 5, because I did my first planting of bushes yesterday and digging a car.
So that's a literal representation of how you're feeling. Physically, mentally, you still got a little dirt there. All right, yes.
My name is Karen, number 3.
Karen, number 3. Yeah, I like number 3.
Chris, number 2.
Chris, number 2.
Herbert, number 4.
Herbert, number 4.
Jen, number 7. It's the end of the school year and I'm a teacher.
Oh, yeah. You want to put that on your door at school then, right? Right?
It's just too much.
Yeah.
Number 4.
Chris, number 4. Yes.
6.
Jeff, number 6.
6.
Jeff, 6. 6, Jeff. Yes, Carl.
Number 8, sleep and poop.
Number 8. Nice. Yes.
And I'm Petey, and I'm number 4.
Petey, number 4. Anybody else? Yes.
Kate, number 3.
Kate, number 3, yeah.
Laura, number 3.
Laura, number 3. I think we have a favorite. Anybody else? Yes.
Linda, number 4.
Linda, number 4. Another favorite.
Julie, number 4.
Julie, number 4. I'm liking the number 4. Anybody else? Yes.
Hey, I'm Dave. I'm 4 now, but I was like 7 trying to get out of the house this morning.
Right. If we're assessing the immediate,
Yeah,
it's
4. I'm
20
good.
minutes ago, it might be a little different, right? Right? Anybody else? Yeah, well, again, I'm Katie, and I'm definitely number 3. We have not only this today, but it's my son's first communion, and then people are coming over after, so I walked out of the house and I looked at my husband and I was like, this needs to look better when I come home. He went, okay. Well, thank you for sharing, everyone. But this is part of mental health, is just the awareness piece of it, and whether it's something to giggle about, it's also something to be like, yeah, I feel like my head's in the ground. Why does that one come up? And just to take a moment and assess that. Okay, so our first big chunk of this today is going to be debunking myths. So I first want to talk about common mental health challenges. So sometimes we hear mental health challenges and we think, well, that doesn't pertain to me because I'm not diagnosed. I don't have a major depressive disorder diagnosis. I'm not, general anxiety. I don't have a bipolar, but I know someone who's schizophrenic. So mental health doesn't really concern me. As long as I'm just being mindful, everything's fine. And that's very narrow. We are going to go cast the net a lot wider today. So as I'm going through this presentation, maybe you have a lot of thoughts come up where you go, this isn't me. I'm actually in a really good headspace right now. But my sister, Carol, wow, this could really help her. So kind of thinking about both ends of it, things that you could take away, and also ways that you can help others as well. So I want to start a little bit with my own story. In my women's group, people, know a lot about my story, but today it's going to be pertaining to mental health. And I'm going to fast forward my story up into just the last couple years. So a little backstory, again, is my professional life has been in health and fitness up until the birth of my 3rd daughter, which I'm still in the health and fitness field, just a lot different. I am definitely an achiever, Enneagram number 3, for those of you who are familiar. So achieving totally gives me energy and helps me keep going. So I was very blessed that right after I graduated from my undergrad, I got a full-time job, which is pretty much unheard of with a kinesiology degree. So kinesiology, you're told a few different things. Become an athletic trainer, go to school, become a physical therapist. I see my physical therapists nodding their heads. Go back to grad school and do something like cardiac rehab, or work so many part-time hours that you do not have a life to get experience, to get a full-time job. Yeah, that sounds like fun. So I was very blessed. I graduated kinesiology degree and I got a full-time job overseeing a large group exercise program. So it was about 75 classes a week. I oversaw anywhere up to 40 to 45 instructors at one time, and I loved it. Well, from there, I was promoted and I oversaw all of fitness, anything that had to do with fitness, and again, I loved it. And from there, Achiever Katie advanced again into overseeing national teams, which I loved up until COVID. How many have that in our story? But COVID. And COVID. Paused COVID, right? And what it did is it really allowed me to be thrust into a lot of mental health challenges that I had suppressed with achievement. And maybe you can relate to this too. You're told, just work harder, get over it, pray more, listen to this podcast, read this book, here's a newspaper article, you should talk to my sister, she's done this. We've all heard these things as this kind of American spirit of pull up your bootstraps, work a little harder, and you can overcome it. Well, being an achiever, I was like, yeah, totally gonna overcome this, and it didn't work. So basically I got extremely burnt out and I left my high-powered corporate job to become a mom of 3, and I loved it and I adored it, and there's a whole big God story behind that. We don't have time for it today. And then about a year into being mom, all these symptoms started coming up again. Depression, anxiety, overwhelm, stress, and it didn't make sense anymore. And achievement wasn't working anymore. and praying wasn't working anymore. Maybe this is you. Maybe this is someone you know. Because depression, anxiety, stress, burnout, relational problems, they're going to look different for every single person. And sometimes they don't have a diagnosis behind them. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't pause and reflect on what's really going on. You see, the problem is that we are told if you work hard enough, you will succeed. If you pray hard enough, God will answer your prayers. But what is that really saying? If you are enough, your problems will go away. Ooh. But what happens when they don't? Are you not enough? See, but it doesn't have to be that way. We don't need to carry our burdens that weigh us down. We don't need to muster up our own strength to overcome our mental health challenges, because the truth is that we don't have enough strength to do this on our own. And we can encourage others to do the same. So I want to pause here and I want to read Matthew 11:28-30, and I already see some soft smiles. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened. I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. You will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Well, that doesn't sound like Buck Up Buttercup, does it? No, it doesn't. Because Jesus invites us to give him our burdens that weigh us down and take up his yoke, his way, and his burden, which is light. Now, you might be thinking, but wait, Katie, you just said that you couldn't pray it away. And you're right, because Jesus is there with us to guide us. And that's what we're going to get into a little bit here, about how faith and mental health can integrate together. It's not an all or nothing approach. So no need to raise your hands, but just thinking in your head, how many of you or someone you love have felt sad and you couldn't snap out of it? Whether it was a day, a week, a decade. How many of you have let worries consume your life or a situation? Even a happy or a joyous situation. Have you ever felt suffocated by the stressors of life? Or have you seen your mental state impact a relationship? And this could be minor or it could be extreme. It could be yourself or it could be someone that you love. Because I know I have. But today is about breaking mental health barriers with faith, not with ourselves or on our own will. So let's get into the next big chunk, which is navigating mental health challenges. I want to talk about the Christian perspective and just briefly some key tenets of Christianity. So they include the belief in one God who is loving and just, the importance of love, forgiveness, compassion towards each other and ourselves, and the hope for eternal life through faith in Jesus Christ. So how does that compare to the Christian myths that we've heard? I mean, I literally just read the importance of love, forgiveness, and compassion, right? If you're willing to share, what are some myths around faith and mental health that you have heard? Anne.
I feel like my dad grew up Lutheran and I did not, but I remember him talking about how he or grandma thought that you needed to endure some pain because Jesus did.
Ooh, who has heard that one before? Endure some pain because Jesus did. Wow. And that's a deep one. Yeah.
The big one is God doesn't give you more than you can handle.
Oh, how does that make you feel? God doesn't give you more than you can handle, and you're literally laying on the ground going, I can't handle this, right? I can't handle this. So how does that then affect your self-esteem? The whole Buck Up Buttercup thing, God gave you this. You can do it.
Pain makes you stronger.
Pain makes you stronger.
Doubt is the absence of faith.
Doubt is the absence of faith. Ooh, I might have seen that stitched on a pillow once or twice. Yes.
You just need to pray harder.
Pray harder. Pray harder. Yes.
I think when I was struggling once with like a mental health challenge and my brother tried to say like Jesus should be enough, like you don't need medication, you just need more Jesus, and that was like such a mind twist for, like, I feel like I waited longer to get help because
Yeah.
I believed that, and that is something that, like, I'd like to scream out, like, that's not true.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. You bring up such a good point there that, you know, when we really start to, when our beliefs and values start to collide, right? You just need more Jesus. You just need more Jesus. And you're like, then am I not good enough for Jesus, right? Like, is that what that person is saying to you? Am I not good enough? But I was told that I am, but I can't get over this. It gets really confusing, right? Right, and so again, we're all talking about like the integration of faith. So thank you guys for sharing that. And get ready to wipe them away. Because those are all myths. They are myths. They are the Christian myths, not the Christian perspective. So just thinking about that. One thing that I often say to my kids, they're all of a sudden like at the kid stage where they're acting like real kids. I feel like they were toddlers for an eternity, and then bam, one day I woke up and there was like, whoo, real full-blown kids here with real problems and asking the tough questions. But sometimes when they talk to themselves, it's very negative. I'm so stupid. Why did I do that? You know, that kind of talk. And so I say to them, I go, would you say that to a friend? And the first time I said it to my son, he goes, no, Mom. Like, actually stood back, like, no. And I went, okay, so why would you say it to yourself? And he paused, and he went, huh. And I go, if you love your friends, you know, we talk about loving ourselves. So if we wouldn't talk to a friend that way, we wouldn't talk to ourselves that way. It's a very basic way of putting things, right? I was talking to an 8-year-old. I'm going to test you one way further than that. Would God say it to you like that? So some of the myths that we brought up where it's like, you know, pain leads to growth, or, you know, just keep praying, or, you know, those kinds of things. It's, God might be teaching us something through an experience, a situation, a feeling, a memory, whatever it is, but He's not saying it to us in that negative self-talk. So when we're telling ourselves things like, you're not worth it, you're not good enough, you should be able to get out of this, God's not going to should you to death. Woulda, shoulda, coulda. His voice is a lot gentler. His conversation is a lot different. So when you're hearing the negativity in your head, or you know somebody who has that negativity in your head, that's aligning with that Christian myth versus that Christian perspective of compassion, love, and forgiveness. You know, tough love is a real thing, right? And I was totally schooled the other day, which I generally appreciated, as I was talking about love with someone, and they're like, yes, but I had to let this person go with love for their own good. And I was like, oh yeah, sometimes you do need to do that. But if God is working with us, that is still going to sound different than negative self-talk. So we are going to dive into that. The theory that I aligned the most with throughout my program so far is called ACT, and it's acceptance and commitment theory, and from it came about acceptance and commitment therapy. Now, the funny thing about this is when I really got into it and I dove deep and I started a lot of my big projects and presentations around ACT, I was actually told by my professor, so you know that this aligns really well with Eastern religion, Katie, which is interesting because you're interested in faith counseling in a Christian perspective. And I was like, yeah, but for me, I have realized how acceptance and commitment therapy aligns so much with Christianity. The deeper I go into my faith, the more I realize that this can really help people. So we're going to get a little bit into the nitty-gritty, and this is where I'm actually giving you guys tools that you can take for yourself or for those that you love. So in ACT, the A stands for acceptance, which is embracing mental health challenges as a part of the human experience and trusting in a higher power. I'm also a really big fan of something called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's very, very common. And it gets you to a certain point. I mean, just total transparency. I work with a Christian counselor, and I'll talk about that at the end here. And he said, I utilize CBT to a certain point because, again, it puts it all on you. You're in control. You have the power. But where does that really get you in the end when it's not working, when the burden becomes too big, right? And so that's then where we have to pause and go to that higher power. But for me, it wasn't about switching the thought. I could do that, no problem. I was an achiever. It was like, oh, I'm having a bad day. No, I'm not. I can do this. The fake it till you make it theory, right? You know, that doesn't work very long, by the way. So accepting it and pausing and going, I really feel like the dog who's laying down today. and that's okay. That's the acceptance part of it. Or I really feel like the dog with its head in the ground because I'm just spent. That's okay. It's saying that I'm going to acknowledge what I'm feeling, what I'm going through, and not try and mask it, not try and slap it on a billboard either, but just say, it's okay. But it doesn't have to like lead every decision from there. The next one is commitment. So this is committing to personal values aligned with faith despite challenges. So once we sit and we accept a certain situation, a feeling, a memory, whatever it may be, it's about being committed to your own personal values, to lean into the person you want to be, but also who God has made you to be. And that's where the commitment comes in. And last but not least is mindfulness. This is practicing present moment awareness, connecting with spiritual practices such as prayer or meditation. So this loops back to the acceptance piece of it. So this is saying that I'm accepting it, I'm going to be mindful that I'm accepting it, and then we're going to move forward from there. Okay, so now let's put it into practice, right? Like it was really fun to learn about Katie, but what the heck does all this mean? So now let's put it into practice. And I want to start with Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Wait, wasn't that a myth we just talked about? In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. We've heard that many times. This is not new to us. But in terms of acceptance, trusting in your heart with all your, trust in the Lord with all your heart is the acceptance that the situation that we have, it's a really big burden. But it's not me who's going to be taking control of it. It is God. And it is with God that I will get through this. And it is with the tools that God gives me and puts in front of me that I will be able to get through this, okay? So I love using the analogy from ACT therapy, which is who is driving the bus? Super simple. Envision a big, long, yellow school bus. Very obnoxious, lots of lights, the stop sign's out, all the things. And on this bus are your difficult emotions. I'm going to get a little touchy. Maybe a past trauma or a situation that really kind of pings the heart, gets that gut kind of tight. And you're on this bus, and you feel really out of control because you're not sitting in the driver's seat. Something else is sitting in that driver's seat. So maybe it's the sadness that you can't shake, and you don't know why you can't shake it. Or it's the anxiety and the worry that is just on repeat, and it is keeping you up at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. That's who's driving the bus. Acceptance says, you walk to the front of that bus and you say, anxiety, you can't run this bus anymore. But I also can't kick you off the bus. Because that is masking a situation. You can't say, anxiety, kick off the bus. Okay, yeah, hip, yippee, skippy, I'm good to go. No, that's not what it's saying. It's saying, anxiety, there is a lovely seat in the back for you, and I'm going to need you to go take that seat. That's what acceptance says. It says, yes, the anxiety is still there, and I'm accepting that it's still there, but I am going to be driving the bus right now. That's where that guilt and shame starts to lift, which is a huge burden of mental health. Do you pretend or push your feelings, situations, and past aside? That would be kicking the anxiety off the bus. It's still there. We put it into the back. Now here's the thing. I'll be very vulnerable, very open about this because I believe that it entices deeper conversations. I have been seeing a Christian counselor for a couple years now. It's been fabulous. And we were a couple weeks in, and he knew my faith background. He was my counselor. Tell him things they wouldn't tell your spouse. And he's like, Katie, have you fully surrendered to Jesus? And I'm like, yeah, that's why I'm here. I told you, with Lutheran, we do all the things. And he's like, no, but have you have concerns with your control. Have you fully surrendered to him and given him your control? And I went, yeah. He's like, no. So we had to talk about that for many weeks, in which, who was driving my bus? I was driving my bus by that point. I was like, I got this mental health thing down. I am an all-star at it. I'm driving my bus down the freeway. We're doing 75. And all the while, Jesus was in the back. So if I let Jesus drive the bus, things are going to start looking a lot different. But I'm not going to switch seats, and I'm not going to the back. I'm going to give control to him to take the situation, but I'm right there behind him. And if I fully give over that control, and I fully surrender to him leading my life, things are going to look a lot different. Now, buckle up, Buttercup, because things got a whole lot worse before they got better. He took the first exit off the freeway and went onto a road that was not paved, okay? And things got a whole lot harder, and it felt like everything that he gave me, he was not supposed to give me, and I could not handle it. And it was a very rough 6 months, okay? It was a lot of work, a lot of therapy, and a lot of additional resources, which I will talk about at the end here. So, anyway, test yourself with this whole bus thing. 1, who's driving your bus? What's driving your bus? And you can take this situationally. 2, are you confident to drive your own bus? To allow that anxiety, that depression, that stress, that burden to take a back seat. And then 1 step further, are you willing to allow Jesus to drive your bus? And what would that look like? Whew, got a little excited there. All right, commitment. Do you understand your values? Values are not an easy subject. They are such not an easy subject that we spent our women's retreat talking about values, and we all walked out going, oh my gosh, I have so many values and I need to narrow them down and I don't remember how and where are my notes, and now everyone's going, oh, I should probably look at that again. Anyway, so we spent a whole weekend talking about it. It's a really heavy subject to unpack. And that's not what this hour is about. But to kickstart identifying your values, I want to look to Galatians chapter 5, verse 22 to 23, with the fruits of the Spirit. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. And why do I bring that up? You're like, well, that's the fruit of the Spirit. It's a really good starting point to start to identify what your values are, right? It can be very overwhelming to even think about what they are. And I want to remind you that values shape our identity. So our values and our identity is not the same thing. And it also helps you create your goals, whatever that may be in life. So it helps with decision making, it helps with goal setting, and it also helps you express who you are and who God wants you to be. There's so much work that can be done on values. If you have more questions, I'm happy to talk after about it, but we do talk about values quite frequently in women's group on Sunday, the first Sunday of each month. The last one then is mindfulness and practice, patience, and prayer. Mindfulness is a term that gets thrown around a lot nowadays. To me, like, mindfulness kind of makes me go, ugh, along with self-care. I'm like, ugh, I hear self-care one more time. I'm going to lose my mind. But mindfulness in terms of ACT and in terms of our mental health and faith integrating together is that practice. Get off the autopilot is what it's saying. So mindfulness is not on autopilot. It is stick shift. Okay? And who actually remembers how to drive stick? I'm actually curious. Yeah. I don't think I could remember anymore, but I did learn. Anyway, that's what it means. It means getting off the autopilot and having to really be present and take the time to attack that thought, throw it to the back of the bus, or to seek help when needed. The next thing is patience. My kids say all the time, because I have to work on it, Mom, patience is a very important virtue. They don't even know what virtue is, but they say it to us all the time because we say it to them. And the thing with patience is that it's a muscle that needs to grow and all that, but the thing with patience and mental health is and mindfulness specifically, it's not on our timeline. It's on God's. And so when we feel like we're not enough or we're not overcoming this fast enough, it's because it's not on our timeline. Again, I really need to work on patience every single day. And at one point I actually stopped counseling because I thought, I'm good. And he was like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, no, we're good. He's like, okay. Came back like a month later. I was like, it wasn't good. And he's like, I know. I was waiting for you to come back because I was rushing the timeline. I wanted things to speed up. I wanted to be over it. And it's not my timeline. It was God's. And then last with that is prayer. Whether we're praying to praise God for his good works or when we need him. And prayer is like, there's so much power in prayer. I'm not going to go into that. That could be a whole nother adult ed and not taught by me, by the way. But with prayer, it's that mindfulness and it's that chance to pause. And it's that chance to breathe and it's that chance to listen. And sometimes that prayer, the small voice might be, today's the day to just accept it and take some deep breaths. Or it might be, today's the day to make the phone call and talk about medication. Right? All right. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Yep, all right. Okay, so now let's talk about myself versus someone else. I know that some of you are here because you have a loved one, maybe that's struggling with mental health, or maybe like while you're listening to this, you have thought of someone. So here are some ways that ACT and faith can impact loved ones with mental health. So in terms of acceptance, when you're talking with someone who is really struggling, it is about expressing empathy and not sympathy. So here's the difference. Sympathy is, oh, that really sucks, but at least you're not dead. Yeah, I kind of feel dead though, thanks. Empathy is, wow, that sounds really, really hard. Tell me more about that experience. It's validating what that person's feeling. It's not that buck up, buttercup, pull up your bootstraps. It's saying, hey, that does sound really hurtful. I don't know what that feels like. Can you tell me more? Or, wow, I know what you're going through. I felt that too. So acceptance is accepting others and accepting the emotion that they felt confident enough to tell you, or maybe they're not confident enough to tell you, but you've realized that that coworker has missed 3 meetings in a row, and her face hasn't smiled in a really long time. And to just go up to her and say, hey Donna, something's off. You want to talk about it? And she might say no. She might go, nope, I'm good. And be like, well, if you ever need someone, I'm here. God talks about planting seeds, right? It's planting that seed with that person to have that accepting and trusting relationship. Next is commitment with helping others. It's to encourage their progress and avoid pointing out their downfalls. Who here, and you don't have to raise your hand, has ever been on a diet? And you've told someone you've been on a diet. Hey, I'm doing keto or whatever. And they're like, great. And then you see them like a month later and they're like, so how's keto going? And you're like, I'm sorry, what? But yeah, no, we do. And they're like, oh, I knew you would. Oh, wow, thanks for the vote of confidence. You're pointing out their downfall. That's not helpful. Instead, encouraging their progress to help them continue on. That's the commitment, because again, it's not on our own strength, and we've already talked about the faith piece with that, but now it's, you can encourage others as well. And you don't have to be a Pollyanna, sunshine and rainbows, a cheerleader. You can do it, just keep going. You're like, no, I really like carbs. I'm not going back on keto. Like, oh, okay, what has worked for you? Or just encouraging them in other ways. That's just a little funny example, but in terms of like, let's say they're really struggling with anxiety, and you notice them starting to fall back into anxious tendencies of gossip and negative mindset and being pessimistic, is, you know, to say to them like, hey, remember when you told me that, you know, positivity tool, can you remind me of that? What was that? You're not calling them out for not using it, you're using it for yourself. Like, hey, can you tell me what that was? I was trying to tell a friend about it the other day. Oh, that sparks it in their head again to keep moving forward with their progress. Mindfulness is just asking them clarifying questions. So a lot of times when we talk to someone, they start to ramble, right? And all of a sudden it's like leading in, and it turns into this whole story, and you're sitting there going, I'm really trying to be empathetic, and I have no idea what you're talking about right now. Is to just ask that clarifying question, be like, wait, you were talking about your son, right, who's having difficulty in school? Oh, okay, and then looping them back in. So giving them that mindfulness so you can be mindful as well. And something we talk about a lot in women's group is how to express our faith with others, especially those who don't share the same faith values. And sometimes it's planting that seed again of saying, you know, I hear that you're struggling, we go through all the things, say, would you mind if I prayed for you? Just to see what they said. And if they say, oh, no, thank you, okay, moving on. And maybe they say, yeah. And you can pause and say, well, can I pray with you right now? So you're taking that prayer of mindfulness and you're bringing it into that situation. You've also given them positive encouragement to help them commit to keep going forward, and you're showing them a form of acceptance, all through mindfulness and prayer. All right, so, lost my spot? Extra mile, that's what we're on. I love talking about adjusting conversations. So when I was pregnant, I hated being asked, how are you feeling? And it's every time you walk up to someone, how are you feeling? Like an elephant, like my back hurts, I feel sick, and I want this to be done. Oh, I'm just loving it. Like, you know, it's these automatic conversations that we have with people of, how are you feeling? Good. How are you feeling? Great. How are you feeling? Not so good. Oh, okay. I'm not gonna touch that one. So just adjusting your conversation to pause and think. Even when someone else is talking to you, so let's say someone's gossiping, let's just call it for what it is, and they're like, oh, did you hear about Darla's son? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he tried to kill himself. Can you believe it? And instead of like engaging in the conversation and being like, oh, they had such a good home, I can't believe, to pause and go, wow, I didn't realize their family was struggling that much. How can we support them? There was a story I was listening to on a podcast once, and it was called The Casserole Crew. And at church, you know, you get casseroles. Someone has going through cancer treatment, someone has a new baby, someone's going through a struggle, and all the casseroles come in. And you find out that someone's son is struggling with a pretty severe mental health crisis, and the casseroles don't come. That's what I'm talking about with adjusting the conversation, is to say, they still need a casserole. And they might need that casserole even more. So just adjust your conversation and think about how we can bring awareness through an empathetic light. I do want to bring this up. Suicide prevention. Guys, Carl and I were just talking about suicide. It is on the rise. It is the #2 killer for, I believe, kids up until the age like 24. Number two. This is something we cannot ignore anymore. And it's because of the guilt and shame that is being weighed down with depression. And that is what is leading, one of the reasons that is leading to suicide. Also, fun fact, women are more likely to attempt suicide than men, but men are more likely to succeed. So we need to stop pretending that this is only a male issue as well. Suicide is real, 988 does help, and it does save lives. And it is extremely non-threatening, it is confidential, and all you have to do is let somebody know who's really struggling about it. And they can get them connected to a counselor, they can talk them off a ledge, and they can get them resources that they need. It is extremely low bar. That's why I'm so passionate about it. You don't have to set up an appointment, you don't have to give your insurance information, you don't even have to give your name. So suicide prevention is huge. If you have a gut feeling, if you feel the Holy Spirit talking to you saying that person is not okay, trust your gut, they're not okay. And take that extra step to go through this stuff, and then don't be afraid to ask a really difficult question. Hey, are you gonna be okay if you go home by yourself today? If they're offended, that's on them. You could have just saved a life instead. And then the last thing that's much more happier is invitation. Invite them. We all want to be included, right? Jesus made us for community. God made us for community, and yet we feel so isolated and separated. And I am to blame with this. I have said to my husband, like, I feel alone, or I feel this, yet I don't reach out to anyone, right? So be that person that reaches out to someone and says, hey, would you like to come to church today? Again, you're like, okay, I can't do that. They don't have the same faith background as me. And what happens if they say yes, right? My best friend's coming today for Finn's first communion. I didn't think she was gonna come. I thought she'd just come to the party. She goes, oh yeah, absolutely, we'll be there. I went, awesome. I got my sister to come to women's group once. Awesome. It's just these little invitations. And so again, it's that coworker that doesn't look right, that neighbor that you haven't seen outside, and she's normally in the garden already, just knocking on her door and saying, hey, everything okay? Invite them in to talk. Okay, accessing resources. All right, so let me just pause and remind you about our goal that we had for today. So it was to empower you guys to navigate mental health challenges by integrating faith, debunking myths, assessing resources, and fostering a supportive community. So now, utilizing all that, kind of bringing it all together here, we're going to talk about different resources for how to actually get help. So we debunked the myths. We talked about Christianity. We all got real excited about Christianity again. Love, forgiveness, grace, woo! All right, and then we went into actual tips that act, right? Accepting, driving the bus. And now we're going to talk about actual resources that you can use or you can give to someone else. The first one, to me, this is just my own personal thing, is to still seek God first. So while prayer might not be the end-all, be-all, it's that mindfulness, the pause and listen, and be guided towards that next step. And that's that mindfulness piece of it. So seek God first and listen. I do have a spoiler alert, there is no burning bush. So unfortunately, you're not going to come out of prayer and like, oh my gosh, there's the angel and he's telling me what to do. No, it's a lot of prayer. It's that patience piece, because remember, it's not our own timeline. But seeking God first. Next, very low bar, is seeking out a trusted friend. I'm again going to bring up my best friend because she is just such a godsend for me, but she is someone that I actually called just the other week and I said, girl, I'm really struggling and I can't say it on our friend group because I feel like I don't have the right to struggle. And she goes, ooh, I'm so happy you brought that up to me. What's going on, girl? And her and I talked for a bit and it was just like, oh, okay. The big issue wasn't solved, but I just felt so much better. So it's that trusted friend. Another really low bar way to get help is Stephen Ministry. And it is here at St. Matt's. We bring it up all the time in women's group. But these are trained individuals from St. Matt's who are there to listen and to bring God's word into the situation. They're there to pray with you. They're there to talk to you. They're there to meet with you. They're there to walk with you. And this, again, there's no insurance information taken. You don't need a referral, and it's free. I've left brochures. I grabbed a couple. They're out there. If they all go, there's more at the Welcome Center. I've given them to people as well who I thought could really benefit from it. But again, removing the barrier is just saying, like, getting rid of that barrier so it's as easy as possible to get help. This might be that first step to something bigger. I'm a huge proponent for professional mental health counseling, clearly, because that's what I'm going to grad school for. But the reason why is it's a completely non-judgmental person across from you. And if you go, well, Katie, I've tried it and I had a really bad experience, great. I've tried a doctor before and had a really bad experience and went and tried a different doctor. Same goes for your therapist. It might not be the first best fit right away. You might have to try on a couple before one fits. Same with this. I am a big advocate for Christian counseling because for me, CBT wasn't working. A secular counselor wasn't working because they got me to a point and my achievement personality got me there. I was there, but it didn't continue me forward. I hit a roadblock and it was a pretty hard roadblock. So for me, I needed to integrate faith and I needed someone to be really comfortable and well-versed to do that with me. I do have a list of organizations if that's something you're interested in, but I want to pause for a second and talk about professional counseling because this is not low barrier. This is a little bit higher, and you're thinking, well, no, it's not. My insurance will cover it, or the copay is low. Yeah, all of a sudden we're getting insurance involved. We're getting a referral involved. And by the way, be prepared to be asked some really difficult questions when you have that referral. Nobody warned me of this. So when you get a referral, they are going to flat out ask you if you are trying to kill yourself. They are going to flat out ask you what is wrong with you, and you might feel like you're being interrogated. So not only to you know this, but someone that you love, if you were encouraging them, to let them know this, but also to let them know that the person on the other end of the phone isn't judging them. This is what insurance requires. So, to me, it was scary, and I was going for mental health counseling. So I feel the need to tell people this, that it is not as low as society makes it sound. It is so, so worth it though. Once you just get past that first step, I went to my first appointment literally shaking, and I said to my husband, I go, okay, you can come pick me up at the hospital because I'm pretty sure that's where they're just going to commit me. And I walked out the door and he was like, what is going on? He's a saint, by the way. So, no, I walked out of there and I was like, oh, that was so nice. I had someone who doesn't know me, asked questions that I wouldn't have asked myself, and you can really be your true authentic self. I walked in there that first day and I said, I do not want the sugar-coated answer and I want you to ask me the difficult questions. And he went, oh, this is gonna be fun. And I was like, yep, here we go. And he reminds me of that from time to time when I don't know how to answer something. He goes, remember when you told me to ask you the difficult questions? I'm like, yes, okay. But anyway, so I'm really passionate about that. If you want to know more, if you need more insight on that, let me know. And then last but not least are other resources. I have a list of free resources through Wauwatosa. It's on this PowerPoint, and then I'll talk about that in a second. But does anybody else have a resource that you know about that could be beneficial to other people here? Oh, yes.
Yeah, I found the NAMI Family to Family classes wonderful.
Yes, and there is a brochure for that downstairs across from the office, right? What kind of classes are they?
Well, they help the family understand the issues that your loved one may be having. I mean, every week was a different topic.
That sounds really good.
I finally found out it wasn't okay to say everybody has problems or.
Yes,
Right.
yes. Dee, that sounds like a wonderful NAMI.
National Alliance for Mental Illness.
Yeah, NAMI. I just picked up a brochure because I didn't know about this. So
Okay.
that's how I know they're there.
Yeah.
Right across from the church office, they're on the table there. And they all, it's group classes, correct?
Right, and it's
Yeah.
free.
And it's free,
Yeah.
low bar. We like that stuff. Anybody else? Carl?
I'm just wondering, in the work that you do, in the whole movement of spiritual direction, are those kind of seen as separate, or do they come together with you?
Carl, that is a fantastic question. I can't separate them. I did not go into my grad program thinking I was going to focus on faith-based counseling. It is not what I did. And then I could not separate it. To me, they were just so deeply intertwined that my true identity started to come out during grad school, and I actually started questioning professors. This is not Katie. I like to achieve. To achieve, you stay quiet and you rise to the top. And I go to Marquette, and it's a Catholic school, and nobody in my program is going for faith-based counseling. None of my professors have experience with it. And I'm not knocking Marquette. I love the program. It has been so good, and it has challenged me so much. If you are a faith person, you will have, I'm just going to be really honest, you'll have a hard time separating. They can be separated. They are every single day. But I do think you reach a point where it's kind
They
of
don't encourage you to seek out a spiritual director?
no, I've done it all on my own, yeah. All right, any other resources? Yeah.
Al-Anon is very helpful for people who have friends or family who are alcoholics.
Elena?
Al-Anon.
Al-Anon. Ooh, friends or family who are alcoholics, yes.
And it deals with a higher power, so it is spiritual.
Right, is that local?
It's everywhere.
It's national? Okay, okay.
Everywhere, online, in person.
Online and in person, so that's again, low bar. If it's,
Free.
Yeah, free. We love free. Okay, that's another really good one then. All right. So I want to pause, and actually I'm going to not put that one on yet. I want to first ask if anybody else has any additional questions about what we went over this morning. Okay. I will be available for a few minutes after here if there's something that you wanted to ask but weren't comfortable with in the group, and I will give my contact information at the very end. There's a sign-up sheet in the back. Only reason to sign in is if, one, you'd like a copy of the presentation. I'm happy to send it along. Or two, if you want to know more about our women's group and want to be put on our email list, I don't email you for anything except for reminders and agendas. I'm not going to spam you at all or sell your information. So you'll check which box you want for that, okay? So take a look at that on your way out. But we are going to actually end with a mindfulness activity. So I am going to turn the lights down. Yeah, there we go. Okay. All right. And I am going to walk you through an exercise that you can do anytime, anywhere. So go ahead and take a nice deep breath in. And on an exhale, go ahead and close your eyes. Let's do that again. Just nice, soft inhale and a gentle exhale. Keeping your eyes closed. Imagine you were on the curb, watching a parade go by. Take a moment to notice if you're sitting or standing, if there are buildings around you, if there's other people close by or far away. You notice the people in the parade are holding signs as they walk by, almost like a protest. Each sign is a passing thought that comes into your head. For example, one person's sign might say, "Stop at the grocery store after work," while another says, "You're so stupid for not remembering your mother-in-law's birthday." Instead of focusing on that one thought and allowing it to consume or grow, allow it to pass by. Then move on to another sign, and another, and another, allowing them all to pass by. Take a moment to notice if one sign keeps popping up. Take a moment to notice if one sign is bigger than another. Keeping the eyes closed, we'll end this meditation by remembering that we accept the signs, but allow them to pass on. When you're ready, you can go ahead and open your eyes. Here are a list of resources that I talked about. The 988 suicide hotline is the number one. A list of a couple different Christian counseling centers that are local with phone numbers attached to them. They can also help you with a referral process if you don't know what that looks like. And last but not least, I listed a bunch of free Wauwatosa resources through that website. I am happy to share this with anyone and everyone that could benefit from it. And I want to thank you. So again, my name is Katie Nickel. I am here a lot of Sundays, but let's get real, not every Sunday. But I've even put my phone number there. So if you think of something and you are not a licensed counselor yet, but I'm happy to direct you in the right area. And then that is my professional email. I just started my own health and fitness coaching business. So if you email me there, it won't get bogged down within the other stuff. And I'm happy again to help start a conversation, dive deeper on one of the topics we talked about, or even help you with some of the resources we mentioned here. I'm going to stick around for a couple minutes. If you have any questions, come let me know. I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you today and to be able to share this knowledge that I am really, really passionate about. So thank you.